What is up, my Pika crew? This is ThePikaWu, and welcome to another Pokemon Wi-Fi battle. So I've been gone for over a year, and I know that's a long time, but it really does feel good to be back. In a future video, I'll definitely explain where I've been, but for now, I'm really excited to share with you guys an NU tier battle against a player called Weedle Twin Needle. Now, I don't know how many people are still following my channel, but to be honest, I'd be happy if even a couple hundred people were watching this video. I'd love to see how many people are still following my channel though, so if you can, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video to see how many fans that are still out there. Also, please be sure to check out my opponent's channel. He posts a lot of Pokemon related content and matches, and he has been really great in showing me how to set up these competitive Pokemon matches in Omega Ruby. Now before we start the match, I'm just going to perform a little bit of analysis on our teams and the matchup. As you can see, both of our teams are very similar in nature. We both have that Fire, Grass, Water core, and both of our teams are generally more offensive in nature. You can see he has two dedicated physical sweepers, his Zangoose and his Sock, but I'm kind of uncertain about the role of his other four Pokemon, as, you know, his Pokemon can act as both bulky sweepers, but can also be defensive and utility Pokemon too. Now on my end, I've got four dedicated sweepers. 2 special and 2 physical. I actually carried Choice Scarf on both my Scyther and my Magmortar, and the benefit here is not many people expect a team to carry 2 Choice Scarfers, and it gives me that beneficial surprise factor. If you actually watch my earlier battles, you'll notice I've been using that same strategy. The rest of my team, my Exeggutor and my Lickilicky, they kind of create the defensive backbone of my team. But keep in mind, the sets that I'm using for both of these Pokemon are going to be offensive in nature. So in terms of choosing my lead Pokemon, there were kind of a couple options I could have decided upon. I could lead off with Jinx to outspeed a lot of my opponent's Pokemon and use Lovely Kiss to put them asleep. Or I can lead off with Scyther because it can hit and run with U-turn. But I decided to lead off with Exeggutor. And I thought Exeggutor was a clear choice for me because it shuts down the Claydol and Relicanth, which are my opponent's Stealth Rock potential users. And if my opponent leads off with a sweeper such as his Sock or Zangoose, I can survive any one hit and retaliate back with a very powerful Leaf Storm. The only lead that I'm truly afraid of is his Abomasnow, but I really don't think my opponent will choose him, simply because the two obvious lead potentials for me, my Jinx and my Scyther, counter Abomasnow completely. So I feel like my opponent would be hesitant to lead off with Abomasnow, and it's a pretty risky move. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this battle. So I'm going to lead off with my Exeggutor while my opponent is actually going to lead off with his Claydol. And this puts me at a great position early on because I should be able to scare off the Claydol with either a Grass type move or a Sleep Powder. So expecting my opponent to bring in Abomasnow to absorb both of those hits, I'm going to switch into Jinx to counter it and attempt to use Lovely Kiss and put that incoming Abomasnow to sleep. However, my opponent actually decides to stay in and uses Calm Mind instead, which I actually thought was a pretty risky move to begin with, but it doesn't really matter too much because next turn I can outspeed this Claydol, put it asleep, and start dishing out attacks. Luckily, the Lovely Kiss, it does connect. So I'm going to opt to go on the offensive, go for the Ice Beam, because it puts me at a really spectacular position if he stays in, and there's a strong chance he's going to stay in, predicting me to use Psychic or another move. The reason why this is really great is because he's definitely going to switch the next turn to save his Claydol as sleep fodder, because if Claydol gets taken out, that means I can take advantage of using Lovely Kiss again and putting another Pokemon to sleep. So knowing that he has to switch next turn, and I'm thinking he's going to switch into Relicanth to take an Ice Beam, I'm actually going to bring in my Exeggutor again. He brings in the Sock on the switch, and that's fine as well because I am physically bulky. I'm not afraid to take any hit. Even if he goes for the super effective knockoff, I can live it and take him out with a Psychic. So I'm just going to stay in, go for the Psychic, knowing that it'll basically take down the Sock to its 30. And if he decides to switch, it can basically hit anything on his team really hard and for at least neutral damage. So the Abomasnow comes in, and he's a pretty big threat to my Exeggutor, which means I'm eventually going to be forced to switch out. But before I do, I decide to go for the substitute just to kind of scout out what kind of set that Abomasnow is. but he actually switches out instead, over predicting, attempts to double switch into Sock. So this backfires for him because he loses his 30 from the hail, and he's forced to basically bring in Abomasnow again because he's going to get taken out by his Psychic. So seeing at how much damage the Psychic does, it actually doesn't do too much to this Abomasnow. It kind of reveals that this Abomasnow is most likely going to be an Assault Vest offensive set. But again, because I have my sub up, I'm not too afraid of this Abomasnow, but eventually I am going to be forced to switch out because once he breaks my sub, I'll be exposed and I don't want to take an Ice type move. But luckily for me, he actually goes for the Ice Shard, and even though it's super effective, I'm basically max HP, max defense, and it surprisingly allows me to take a super effective hit without breaking my sub. And this allows me to get off another Psychic before he breaks my substitute, and that's just enough to take out this Abomasnow. Luckily for me too, I also get that special defense drop, so that actually guarantees me taking out my opponent's Abomasnow without any min-max roll damage. So in comes his Camerupt, and the reason why I stay in against his Camerupt is because I wanted to set up a substitute and scout what my opponent will do, while simultaneously healing myself with my Citrus Berry item. But my opponent actually surprises me, and he outspeeds me, takes me out with a Fire Blast, despite the fact that I even carry a lot of speed EVs on that Exeggutor. So that kind of reveals that Camerupt is not a defensive set. It's definitely an offensive set with max speed and rock polish. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Kabutops and force my opponent to switch into Relicanth because he's kind of scared of the water type move with his Camerupt, and the best thing to take it is the Relicanth. So I'm going to proceed to double switch into my Lickilicky and attempt to set up some Swords Dances and boost up. So this isn't your normal defensive Lickilicky set. Rather, it's a Swords Dancing set with Substitute, and I'm hoping to set up some free Substitute basically as my opponent goes for either the Stealth Rocks or a Toxic or any non-attacking move that the Relicanth might do. But my opponent actually brings in the Sock instead, which will eventually scare me out with a close combat. But I have one free chance to go for a Body Slam, and with his defense drop, it should do a decent amount of damage with a 30% chance to paralyze. So if I do get the paralyze here, that will actually be extremely beneficial and I can take out the Sock, but unfortunately that's not the case. So the obvious switch here is to go into Scyther to quad resist the fighting move, but my opponent will most likely realize this and would probably go into Relicanth to counter my Scyther, and that'll allow him to put up rocks as I go for the U-turn and switch out. So knowing this, I'm actually going to stay in instead against that potential close combat and go for the Swords Dance, which actually pays off drastically because he does indeed go into his Relicanth. So if this Relicanth is max defense, it might have a chance to survive a Power Whip. So what I'm going to do is go for the substitute, kind of scout out what the Relicanth wants to do, and if he can break my substitute. But because he went for the Head Smash and not Waterfall, this means that he probably doesn't have a 100% accurate move, and I can attempt to substall, trying to fish for probably a Head Smash miss or something, and it has shaky accuracy, like 80%. So if that's the case, then I will be able to set up a substitute against that Relicanth. But he actually ends up switching instead, bringing in his Claydol as death fodder, so this actually works in my favor even better because now I do get a free substitute up. So I'm going to go for the +2 Body Slam. Doesn't quite take down the Claydol, and at the same time, the Claydol's able to wake up, take down my substitute with a critical hit Psyshock. So that is kind of unfortunate that I wasn't able to take down this Claydol with a substitute up. And the downside is, although I can take down this Claydol, it will leave me exposed against his Sock that he's probably going to bring in again to try to revenge kill my Lickilicky. So that's exactly what my opponent does. He's going to bring in his Sock. I know the close combat is coming, or either the Stone Edge as well. But I decide that I should switch anyways to Scyther in the case that he just plays it safe, since he did overpredict the past couple of times. So hopefully I do take close combat, but nope, he goes straight for the Stone Edge, and that's 4 times super effective, and that's going to take down my Scyther. And that was a beautiful prediction, very high risk, high reward move, and it really paid off for my opponent's part, on my opponent's part. So Now that he's locked into that Stone Edge, I'm going to bring in my Kabutops, mainly because Life Orb Waterfall should do a good amount of damage to anything he brings in, and it should scare that Sock out. I was hoping that he would bring in the Relicanth because I wanted to deal some damage against it, to a point where my Lickilicky can kind of take it out with a 4x super effective Power Whip. But even better, he actually brings in his Zangoose, predicting me to double switch into Lickilicky or something. And if that were the case, if he brought in his Zangoose, as I brought in my Lickilicky, that definitely would have shifted the momentum to his favor, and the game might have been a lot different. But because he overpredicted and took a Waterfall and an Aqua Jet, that Zangoose is no longer a threat to my team. So I'm going to keep that Kabutops for later. So I'm going to bring in my Lickilicky on this Relicanth switch in, and I'm able to take that Head Smash and have enough HP to set up a substitute. So I'm just going to continually go for that substitute strategy, fishing for a Head Smash miss. But in this case, I don't even need to fish for that Head Smash miss because he ends up switching out anyways. He decides to bring in the Camerupt. The idea there was he was most likely bringing in Camerupt to take the Power Whip and then outspeed my Lickilicky and take me out with a Fire Blast. But with the substitute up, I'm not really too worried about any of Camerupt's hits, and I get another chance to go for the Body Slam and attempt to paralyze that Camerupt. So I go for the Body Slam here, and luckily for me, I actually do hit that 30% paralyzed chance, and what that enables me to do is outspeed that Camerupt next turn with my Lickilicky and take it down with another Body Slam. So Lickilicky is doing a lot of work here, taking down half of my opponent's team, and yeah, I really love this set. Because most people use defensive Lickilicky and most people expect the defensive Lickilicky, having an offensive Lickilicky really creates that surprise factor and is actually really efficient in the NU tier. So Lickilicky is finally going to get taken down after taking down half my opponent's team. He's going to get taken down by that close combat, but that leaves my opponent with 2 Pokemon left, his Sock and his Relicanth. And I do have a Choice Scarf Magmortar with Thunderbolt, so Thunderbolt should be able to take down that Sock since he's at a low amount of HP. And I can take any one hit. I can take a close combat, I can take a Stone Edge, and his last Pokemon is that Relicanth, which is going to be weak, against an Electric type move. So that is going to be the game. I am going to be able to take down the rest of my opponent's team with Thunderbolt. And that means the game is basically going to end in a 2-0 or 3-0 victory. My opponent actually ends up just going for the Stealth Rocks because he already knows he lost. But, you know, if he went for the Head Smash there, it would have been a 2-0. But it was a really, really great game. A lot of great predictions on both me and my opponent's part. And I hope you guys enjoyed that battle as well. You know, I thought it was going to be a really great match to have for my return video. So, yeah, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like, favorite, and share this video to other people. Maybe share to people and let other people know in the community that I'll be posting actively again. And if you're a new viewer, if you do end up liking my commentary, please be sure to subscribe. So this is ThePikaWu. Thank you for watching my video, and stay tuned for the comment question of the day. And peace out, guys.